All right, today I want to look at two people. I want to look at how they handled the tension and the pressure that we're all facing in these turbulent times today. And the first is going to be a person I don't like that much, but I really like what he is doing. And the second person is going to be someone I like a great deal, but I'm not very fond of his decision, because we're all going to be tested. We're all going to face problems in various ways. And I think there is a appropriate way to respond, and there's ways that are mistaken, even if it sounds good. And this should help everyone as we get to a better world as a collection of our individual decisions projected out there into the world. And that brings us to what we see today. And so let's first look at this. And this is kind of an amazing story, because Glenn Beck with this Nazarene Fund and Samaritan's Purse are helping Christians marked for death flee Afghanistan. As concerns grow over the Biden administration's ability to evacuate Americans ahead of the planned military withdrawal from Afghanistan, nonprofit organizations are working to assist U.S. citizens and Afghans to flee the nation that's been overrun by the Taliban. Now, I hope they're getting only good guys out. We're just going to kind of look at this from the 10,000-foot level. But with less than a week until the August 31st deadline for withdrawal of the remaining U.S. troops, the federal government is working to evacuate Americans and Afghans who risk being tortured or executed. The State Department reported that there are no more than 1,500 American citizens seeking to leave, and there has been difficulty doing so. And so Glenn Beck has actually stepped up to help. On Tucker Carlson Tonight, on Thursday, Fox News opinion host Tucker Carlson profiled the Nazarene Fund, a charity founded by conservative radio host Glenn Beck, as one of a small number of groups that have headed to Afghanistan and the region to help evacuate people who are trapped there, because the Biden administration shows why big government, communism, and socialism just don't work. And I don't care for Glenn Beck. I think when people are like, "Ugh, Republicans," and they point to Glenn Beck, I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. But the guy is rich, he has connections, and he's not just using his platform to say, we need to do something, or Biden is bad. He's actually doing something. And it begs the question, where are all the other millionaires? Where are all the other billionaires? Where's Bezos? Where's Gates? Where are these people? Why aren't they putting their money on the line? Why aren't they bringing this vast amount of resources they have? Rather than sending a rocket into space, why aren't they helping to evacuate American citizens out of Afghanistan? That's a good question, right? So let's watch this clip briefly.
We have pulled out 5,100 people, Christians, women, children, and put them on planes. See what you're seeing there is one of the last planes that took off before the bombing, or bombings today. We had about 500 refugees, women and children mainly, and we had them inside of the airport today. And one military official ordered them to go back on the other side of the gate. I have pictures of them this morning pleading to get back through the gate. And then I have pictures of blood and body parts and nothing but death in that same area. We believe that our State Department is directly responsible for what we believe were some of these people. I don't know how many survived.
Have you been able to get a sizable number of Christians out of Afghanistan? It seems like that's a group that would need to leave.
5,100. The country that I'm in right now is at their limit. There are only 3 countries. The State Department has blocked us every step of the way. The State Department and the White House have been the biggest problem. Everyone else has been working together, putting aside differences and trying to get these people to safety. The State Department and the White House have blocked us every single step of the way. In fact, an ambassador was called in Macedonia last night and told not to accept any of these people as we were trying to get them off of the tarmac here to keep the airport flowing and getting these Christians out. We haven't really been able to move anybody for about 12 hours. Our mission is now changing greatly. We have to send people into even greater danger to try to smuggle these Christians out who are marked not just for death, but to be set on fire alive because they're converted Christians. Also, tomorrow I'm getting back onto another plane.
Okay, so he talked about it, setting differences aside. And again, I'm not a big fan of Glenn Beck, but this work speaks for itself. We don't hold people up because they are perfect individuals. It is the bravery that they show, the correct decision making, using the resources that you have to make virtuous decisions. And I gotta, hand it to Glenn Beck. This is about one of the most positive things that I've seen in this entire disaster. And that would be the Nazarene Fund and Glenn Beck and Samaritan's Purse. You can't argue with what they're doing. It is just the good. It is the good that he is capable of doing. And it also sets the bar higher for other people that are going to opine, that have the resources like, why aren't you doing something? Don't just talk. So I want to look at another guy, a guy I admire a great deal. This is a Marine commander. I like him, but I want to also critique what his decision was. So he says, I demand accountability. And he's fired for his viral video where he rips the inept Afghan war decisions. So there's abundant examples of retired and former military officers publicly demanding accountability of Biden. It's incredibly rare and unheard of to see an active duty officer voice criticisms directed at top Pentagon brass on the public level. But one high-ranking Marine officer has just done just that in a now viral video. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, until Friday morning, was a sitting Marine infantry battalion commander in good standing. But late in the day, it's been confirmed he was promptly relieved of his command over his statements, I am willing to throw it all away, to say to my senior leaders, I demand accountability. And the Facebook video has already racked up over 1 million views across various platforms.
But the reason people are so upset on social media right now is not because the Marine on the battlefield let someone down. That service member has always rose to the occasion, done extraordinary things. People are upset because their senior leaders let them down, and none of them are raising their hands and accepting accountability or saying, we messed this up. If an 05 battalion commander has the simplest live fire incident EO complaint, boom, fired. But we have a Secretary of Defense that testified to Congress in May that the Afghan National Security Force could withstand the Taliban advance. We have chairmen of Joint Chief, who the Commandant is a member of that, who's supposed to advise on military policy. We have a Marine combatant commander. All of these people are supposed to advise, and I'm not saying we've got to be in Afghanistan forever, but I am saying, did any of you throw your rank on the table and say, hey, it's a bad idea to evacuate Bagram Airfield, the strategic air base, before we evacuate everyone? Did anyone do that? And when you didn't think to do that, did anyone raise their hand and say, we completely messed this up? I've got battalion commander friends right now that are posting similar things, and they're saying, wondering if all the lives were lost and if it was in vain, all those people that we've lost over the last 20 years.
Yeah, sadly.
And he goes on to say that we're all part of a chain. While every link may not be tested, the strength of the chain is only as strong as each link, and you got to be, a good link, something like that. And what I'll say is, and from my position, potentially all those people did die in vain if we don't have senior leaders that own up and raise their hand and say, we did not do this well in the end. Without that, we just keep repeating the same mistakes. This amalgamation of the economic / corporate /
globalist,
political / higher military ranks are not holding up their end of the bargain. I want to say this very strongly. I have been fighting for 17 years. I am willing to throw it all away to say to my senior leaders, I demand accountability.
And he did. And he was fired. And I have a problem with that decision. Now, Kurt Schlichter, see, a lot of people are running and they're saying this is great. He's 100% right. And when I was in, I would have been relieved of command, no politics, but the standard has changed, the leadership changed it. The rule is now military, uniformed military can do politics, so I would give him a medal. You know, I don't know the ins and outs of the rules for those in uniform. It's generally my understanding you're not supposed to be doing things like this. And I think he knew when he said, I throw it on the table here, he knew he was kind of committing seppuku. Like, this was discussed, and it was admirable in the sense that he got a lot of views. But what's he doing today? You see, Glenn Beck still has his position, he still has his influence, and he is still helping right now to get people out of Afghanistan that the government can't seem to do. However, this Marine is now unemployed. Okay, he had a position and a fairly high-ranking one, and he got his views, and then everyone on TikTok went to the next video with 1 million views, and that's it. It's a flash in the pan. It's a symbolic gesture. And so I want to talk to you about the difference when you're kind of deciding, what do I do? How do I go forward? You got to think about effective action versus symbolic action. Ask yourself, is this an effective action? Like what Glenn Beck is doing is actually getting people out of that country. Symbolic action, all this guy really ended up doing was hurting himself. He got a lot of hell yes. But at the same time, he's now out of the hierarchy. He's removed himself from the corrupt establishment machine. And the thing is, these bureaucracies are only as good as the men that inhabit them. It's one of these things, you think of the machine or the power structure as a hierarchy, and it's just monolithic, and it's not. And this is why I encourage everyone to read the book Dictatorship to Democracy, because in it, the writer, Gene Sharp, talks about almost like a counter-infiltration of bureaucracies and power structures. And in this case, it would be with good men, with patriotic men. Because what we're seeing in Afghanistan is just the result of a long chain of ineptitude, inactivity, and it drives me nuts, but it's basically this, can't somebody else do it? You know, Glenn Beck could say, can't somebody else evacuate these Christians? No, he just goes and does it himself. And so when facing a challenge in your own life, which you are going to face because this is like a global crisis type thing, you're going to be able to do what's right or what's easy. And you might think, well, somebody else can do it. Someone else can fill my role. Somebody else can resist in whatever way. You'll know it when it comes to you. And there is nobody else to do it. The challenge put before you is a challenge for you. What I don't like is that this Marine threw away his career, because now we have a good man in higher echelons of political power who has removed himself out of disgust, and people can say, yeah, he's right, but he's given all his institutional power away to someone that will bow down to globalism, most likely. Now, take, for example, someone like me. I work in logistics. I'm on the phone all day. I talk to people across the country, and I have kind of got an unofficial network of people with the varying degrees of truth that they know about or are willing to accept. And so I call people, we do our job, and then we'll talk about the events and news of the day. We'll share tips, we'll share stories, we'll share information and contacts and connection. Because I have my job, even though I disagree with the official position of the corporate leadership, because I'm in this position, I am also able to work against it and influence to whatever small degree I have, but those are my decisions. I get people from Florida telling me what it's like on the ground at Florida that directly contradicts what I hear in the news. Say I'm having an issue with, I've talked about the park near my house. You get these kids, they're drinking and driving and partying and whatever. I can call 911 and they never show up. But then I can start talking to people I work with, and I can start asking, hey, do you know anybody that works in the local sheriff's department? And you'll talk and no one does, or someone knows someone. But by using this network I've developed, I can get through a friend reference to an actual deputy. And like, hey, can you give me their number? Or can I talk to them? I can then call that deputy in person, and he can help me maneuver the actual policing bureaucracy. They can get me in touch with the people that can get things done. And then I'm getting extra patrols. Then I'm getting this concern raised up to a level that's not going through the official channels of, file a police report of this complaint, when you saw it, where, and, what kind of vehicles. I'm actually talking to people that know the people that can get things done. And so you work through back channels, but it is much more effective. And I'm able to do this just because I'm on the phone every day. And I think this Marine probably had some incredible connections. And those millions of views he's getting, they're probably not going to move the needle versus staying in the establishment, staying in the machine, and working against the upper brass's stated goals of, making Marines march in red heels and, all this wokeness that they're embracing. Because that's just a momentum that's there. We are where we are. We can't actually stop the flow of this river, but you can redirect it over time. So when you're faced with your challenge, you have to use your discernment. And I really advise that you take into account symbolic action versus effective action. You do matter. Like, people who know people who know people. And it's these webs of connections that you're a part of that make you more powerful than you realize. Think of it like a medieval battle, a culture that values bravery. There's effective tactical action on the battlefield that may help you turn the tide and win this battle, or you can be kind of like the Hollywood Braveheart guy that charges headlong into a wall of spears, or you can be the cowards that run away. Well, the cowards we can see are clearly useless, but the guy that charges headlong into the wall of spears is just about as useless. It is the soldiers, the battle-hardened soldiers, that make the appropriate tactical decision at the appropriate time. Those are the people that will be turning the tide. So remember, just think, what are my choices? What are my options? Make effective decisions, not just symbolic ones.